This is a 2022 Hyundai Tucson, a small Korean SUV that enters its 4th generation this model year, looking all snazzy with its fancy headlights and bigger footprint, and 3 powertrain choices, including a plug-in hybrid option. How cosmopolitan and in the now. Fortunately, it also drives better than ever. My name is Robin Warner, an experienced engineer and magazine editor, and I am neither cosmopolitan nor in the now. Okay. The 2022 Hyundai Tucson Hybrid Limited that you see here is in the middle of the road powertrain-wise, above the standard engine but beneath the plug-in hybrid, and top-of-the-line trim above the SE, SEL, N-Line, and Blue models. That last one is hybrid powertrain only, by the way. That means you get 19-inch wheels instead of 17s, a panoramic moonroof, and a 10.25-inch instead of 8-inch center console touchscreen. More importantly, the Tucson Hybrid is powered by a 1.6-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine, producing a peak output of 180 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. That engine gets help from an electric motor mounted in front of the transmission, which produces a 59 horsepower and 159 pound-feet of torque on its own, but it does so with different RPMs. That means you get a grand total of 226 horsepower at its peak and still 195 pound-feet of torque, but from a nice broad range. All that combusted and electrified power is then channeled through a 6-speed automatic transmission and heads to all 4 wheels. Though it should be noted that the Tucson is front-wheel drive by default unless the system determines power needs to be sent to the rear. The base price for the 2022 Hyundai Tucson SE with front-wheel drive is $26,135. The Tucson Limited Hybrid starts at $38,535, and my test car cost $39,054. For those that are interested, I included detailed specifications, including dimensions, fuel economy, and options in the description. All right, let's take a look around the car. Well, here it is, the 2022 Hyundai Tucson. This is the Tucson Limited, and it's the hybrid. And this particular car is painted in quartz white, which is a $350 optional color. Fun little fact about the Tucson. This is Hyundai's small SUV, but there are actually 2 sizes of Tucson worldwide. And the US and Canada only get the larger of 2 sizes, which means this one has a 3.4-inch longer wheelbase, which is 108.5 inches, and it is over 6 inches longer than the other one, and that's 182.3 inches. It's also a little bit taller, standing at 65.6 inches above the ground. And of course, this is also bigger by a fair amount than the last generation Tucson. More importantly, because this is the 4th generation model, it has new styling, and I think they did a darn good job with it. So it has this new grille that, generally speaking, looks a little bit familiar if you've seen the 2021 Hyundai Elantra and the 2020 Hyundai Sonata, but I think this might be the best execution of it yet. I really like how the grille and the headlamps kind of incorporate into one thing. So this is all grille right here, but you can look closer here. Those are lights in there, and when the car lights up, it has just a really nice look to it. Otherwise, you've got nicely incorporated fog lights on either side. And then the lower grille, you know, looks sharp enough with this finished metal accent and things like that. The dead bugs are courtesy of me. Going around, the profile is also really nice. They did a lot of work to kind of make it stand out on the side. You've got a lot of strong character lines running right here, strong sharp creases here, and then coming down through here, which kind of like gives like a really bold fender flare look on both the front and the rear axles. And also here are your 19-inch wheels, since this is a limited instead of 17s. Looking up, this also has a panoramic piece of glass for the moonroof, and you know, the black down on the side, the lower variances, you know, I'm kind of neutral about those things, but I do like this kind of finished metal look along the top of the windows, and I think they did a good job with the rear spoiler as well. it blends in well with this, what they call crossbar tail lights. So you can see you've got pretty standard tail lights here and here, but then a crossbar here. And because I'm standing in back, that is your automatic opening tailgate operating for me right there. And as you can see, there's actually quite a bit of storage and of cargo room back here. You have 39 cubic feet of cargo room with the seats still up, and that's pretty massive, and that goes up to 75 when you fold the seats flat, which I'll show you in just a second. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put this down for now. One nice little feature about this as well is you have this kind of like faux diffuser bit down here, but there's no fake exhaust, anything anywhere. I mean, this is a hybrid after all, it says so right there, and has just your nice standard tailpipe hanging out underneath, hidden, no problem. I think that the modern styling language that Hyundai is using is working well for their cars, and that the Tucson is the best example of it yet. Let's take a look inside. Starting in back, I actually want to show you something. So as you saw, this is how you move the seats up, the second row back and forth. But as you can see, that's the first locking position. You actually have several different adjustments for incline. So you can have it there or lean back that far as well. So, you know, approaching what you'd call economy class airline seats in terms of recline, right? But I'm going to go ahead and put it in the middle position right there and hop in. This being the longer wheelbase, you have plenty of knee room. Look at that. You know, probably 4-5 inches of knee room. I have good thigh support because the seats are nice and high. I have 2 charging ports down there. And unless there's a middle occupant in back, we get cup holders back here, you know, and the usual power windows, but a little less usual heated seats with 2 adjustments. That's nice. So let's go to the front. So this is the Limited. That means that I get this 10.25 inch instrument cluster screen and also a second 10.25 inch center console touchscreen right there. I also get, you know, your usual buttons here, seat memory, which is nice, power windows, excuse me, and things like that. You know, decent space in the door, cup holder. You do get power seats, and that is nice and effective lumbar right there. Now, in the lower center console, you have this area right here. You have lots of charging options down here, which is cool. And then you also have this like lower secondary storage right here, which is useful. Obviously, some nice space back here. Pretty standard fare these days, right? Looking at the wheel, lots of options here as the seat moves up for me. And I've got good controls up here to use, which is nice for the panoramic moonroof that comes standard on the Limited. This also has wireless charging, Qi wireless charging, but it's not this pad here. It's actually this pad right here. Now that's optional on SEL models, but standard on the Limited. I've also got a lot of different controls to work with here. Now that the car's on, you can see the screen lit up. It's real easy to use. Just scroll to the different menu options, of which there are a lot. First saw this on the Elantra. Sounds of nature, that's always fun, right? Love sounds of nature. And here is the instrument cluster screen lit up. The engine, so the car had been on for a little while now, but the engine just started up because I had plenty of battery pack to get going. Because this is Limited, I have heated and cooled seats and a heated steering wheel. The transmission is now this push button bit right here, which, to be totally honest, I'm getting used to. Not 100% there yet, but it's clean enough, and it's not like this is some novel thing we've seen it a fair amount now. And then here is your switch for driving modes. You get 4 driving modes: Eco, Normal, Smart, and Sport. And you know, they do the pretty standard things. This does not have adjustable suspension or anything like that. But sticking with the interior, I think it's a really clean design. They did a really nice job with the trim pieces. HVAC system is kind of incorporated throughout the entire width of the car, just like that. And it's plenty cool and comfortable in here. The seats have good support, and like I said, I enjoy the lumbar. One more quick thing to show you. This is a nice trick since we have an instrument cluster screen as opposed to real gauges. So we're not moving, but if you put the car in drive and you want to turn left, you get a screen that shows you what's coming in blind spots to your left. And if you want to turn right, you get it to the right. And if you notice up top, you get a 0.0 times 1,000 RPM, so you still get a tachometer. And going left, you still get speedometer. So neat little trick. So yeah, 4th generation Tucson offers a whole heck of a lot. So let's go ahead and go for a drive. Oh, before we do that, I should show you our lovely panoramic moonroof. So that reveals the glass. And there goes the glass moving itself. All right, now let's go for a drive. I know what you're thinking, Robin, I'd love to go for a drive, but the car's not running and it looks like it's parked in an awkward position. Well, the Tucson has Smart Park, which means look at all these buttons on the key fob, which means, of course, I can auto start the car, and from there, I can move it too. Check this out. So, hit the lock button, hold down the start button. Now I know it's running. Now you have to move a little bit closer. You're supposed to be between 6 and 10 feet away from the car for this to work. And I'm just gonna hit this button right here to move the car forward a little bit. What? And stop right there. How cool is that? And also here's a nice chance to see the headlights lit up. Very, very cool. All right, time for a drive. Hi everybody, here it is, 4th generation Hyundai Tucson 2022. And what we're looking at is the maturity of the latest styling language that started with the 2020 Hyundai Sonata, which we also saw in the Hyundai Elantra late last fall. And I have to say, they're getting pretty darn good at it. I like the way the Tucson looks, and I think they made some bold and smart choices with the way it looks. I think it's really clever the way they integrated the headlights into the grille like that, so it's kind of like one seamless thing you're looking at until it gets into the bodywork. And I think it was really cool the way they put in just a lot of extra aggression by adding those character lines throughout the profile of the car to give this like sense of this like hourglass shape and like big broad fender flares and things like that. Those are the kind of tricks that just add that extra touch, that extra style that makes the car just a little bit more emotionally appealing as opposed to just practically satisfying. I also think they did a good job in the back. I like the rear spoiler as rear spoilers go. Obviously, being a small SUV, you need that extra downforce, of course. No, you don't really need any downforce, and it doesn't create any. But it also looks nice, and it fits the styling well, and it's actually pleasantly surprised that they're not going for that SUV coupe shape with the sloping rear roof and stuff like that. This is more of your traditional 2-box shape. It's practical, and you get benefits from that, like 39 cubic feet of cargo space behind the second row. That's a lot for the small SUV. Now, this is pretty big for a small SUV, but still, that's a lot, you know. And those are the types of things that you'll find abundantly useful in a lot of different circumstances, right? Like, for example, if you fold the second row down, this could probably swallow a whole heck of a lot of IKEA. Just just as a for instance. And when it comes to powertrains, I really appreciate the fact that Hyundai added a lot of variety here. You can get the traditional 2.5-liter engine. It kind of runs in the old school sense. It's not turbocharged, and you get 187 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque, and that's tied to an 8-speed automatic transmission that can be either be front or all-wheel drive. You know, pretty competitive power and torque figures. 8-speed transmission, that's par for the course these days, and you know, front or all-wheel drive. All pretty standard things, completely competitive. Then you can go hybrid, which more and more manufacturers are doing, but that's not completely mainstream yet. And then you get a 1.6-liter turbocharged engine with 180 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque. But you also get a 59 horsepower electric motor that also makes 195 pound-feet of torque. Now, one thing to note, it makes 195 pound-feet of torque between 0 and 1600 RPM. So basically, just as the engine gets moving above idle, that's when the electric motor is doing all its work. And then as the gasoline engine spins faster, the electric motor becomes less effective. So it's a little bit less about producing more power as opposed to producing the same amount of power more of the time. And that has plenty of its own benefits. Like, you know, if I just hit the gas, I get a reasonably quick downshift and good pull right away. And in fact, I got a decent amount of pull before I even got the kick down from the transmission because that electric motor could supply torque so quickly. And what's interesting is the hybrid powertrains get a 6-speed transmission instead of an 8-speed. And I'm not exactly sure why, other than the fact that they might have had one available to use with that engine, and the hybrid system allowed them to have fewer ratios and still get the same amount of fuel economy. Either way, peak horsepower in the hybrid is 226 horsepower, which is pretty darn decent. Now, if you go plug-in hybrid, which isn't out yet, by the way, it should be out in about a month or so, you get even more power because that's not a 59 horsepower electric motor, it's a 90 horsepower electric motor that makes 224 pound-feet of torque. And that electric motor spins to like 2100 RPM or even a little higher. So it can provide more power more of the time. And that gives you 261 horsepower total system power with the plug-in hybrid. Furthermore, it's got a 7.2 kilowatt hour battery pack that Hyundai claims is good for 32 miles of EV driving. You know, pretty darn stout. But there's some cool technology in the internal combustion engine as well. This 1.6 liter has something called CVVD, and that is continuously variable valve duration. And what that means is that Hyundai can actually control not just when the valves open and close, but how long they stay open, and that can change for different conditions as the engine's running. Basically, long story short, it's a cool technical way to get a little bit more fuel economy out of engines without sacrificing other parts of like torque band, horsepower, those types of things. So that's just a really clever technology that people have been working on for a long, long time, and Hyundai found a cost-effective way to do it. And what we get as a benefit is an SUV that makes darn decent power and pretty darn good fuel economy all at the same time. Why don't I show you? All right. Briefly coming to a stop. There you go. Not bad. Not bad at all. Certainly not overwhelming, right? But it's a weird combination of things because you get pull in places you don't quite expect it based on what you're hearing in terms of engine revs. And even though the engine is getting into lower RPMs because it's a 6-speed, not an 8-speed, you're getting pull all the time because of the electric motor helping out in the lower end. So it's effective, and you know, it's nice and seamless too. So it's not like you're getting weird surges in acceleration. It's just that what your ear is expecting isn't quite what you're getting. So it's just a matter of getting used to that a little bit. I should note also that all hybrids are all-wheel drive, and it's optional with the internal combustion engine car. So the 2.5 liter is either front wheel drive or all wheel drive, but both the hybrid and the plug-in hybrid are all wheel drive. And that is a mechanical all wheel drive system. So it's the same system for both cars. And that means it's not an electric motor hanging out on the rear axle and no drive shaft going between the front and the rear. The effect is that you get up to 50% of the power going to the rear axle, and you don't have to think about, is the electric motor maxing out at any speed or anything like that, because you have full access to the full powertrain's power that can go to the rear axle. Overall, I have to say that I'm quite impressed with this powertrain. Nice and refined, it's very quiet, it operates smoothly, and I get 37 miles to the gallon in the city, 36 miles a gallon on the highway, and 37 miles combined. And that even actually improves a little bit further if you get the blue trimmed Tucson hybrid. You get fewer features and it's maybe not quite as luxurious, but you get even more fuel economy out of it. So if you really need an SUV but want great fuel economy, that would be your choice. And it's not just a nice powertrain. The Tucson is built on a nice solid platform and provides a really comfortable ride. There are moments, if you go over some really big bumps, that it gets a little bit harsh, but generally speaking, it's quite good. You know, it's not as refined as, say, the premium segment brands, but, you know, totally competitive in its class. It's also very quiet inside. Good wind noise isolation, good road noise isolation. As I said before, the powertrain itself is very quiet, so it's very easy to be in this car at highway speeds and still, you know, hold a conversation at normal volume. You've got a lot of comforts and qualities. The 10.25-inch touchscreen works really well. You have a lot of options. I mean, sounds of nature, come on. And I really appreciate the fact that I've got good lumbar support, I've got heated and cooled seats, I've got heated steering wheel, seat memory, and that's in addition to really great fuel economy and tons of space in back for cargo room or for passengers in the second row. The downside to this car is just the pure driving enthusiast fun here. You do have drive modes, okay? You have Eco, Sport, Smart, and Snow driving modes, but that's largely just a powertrain thing, so you get different throttle maps, the way the transmission shifts, things like that. And the handling of the car is, you know, less than ideal. Turn and response is a little bit slow, and there's a fair amount of body roll in this car. It leans side to side pretty heavily, and you'll have noticeable dive and pitch when you're heavy on the accelerator, heavy on the brakes. And the tires, while they are very good at being quiet and they probably have low rolling resistance too, which helps fuel economy, they're not very good for grip. But okay, obviously you wouldn't think of a Tucson hybrid as your go-to car to be, you know, like your country road fun car, right? This is a car that's largely here to serve a purpose, a utilitarian purpose, and it serves that job really well. It's just that I'm a big driving enthusiast and I can't help but notice these things about the car. There are SUVs out there in this category that are going to provide better driving experience. So if that's high on your list, that might steer you away from this Hyundai, but there are so many people that would find this very comfortable, very quiet, very spacious, and great fuel economy. It's kind of just icing on the cake that I think it looks really cool too. I'm Robin Warner. Thank you for watching. And if you are still watching, I'd really appreciate it if you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Really helps me out a lot. All right, goodbye. Those things really help.